All right, and we're live. Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back for another Total War live stream with the Terminator. And today I'm joined by some developers and historians of the Rome Remastered mod, RTR Imperium Surrectum. We've got Jorellaf and Mausolos and Rex here, and they're going to talk us through some of the research that's gone into the mod so far. Some of the the work, the artwork, the work on the map, future work as well that might come up in the that we can be excited about, and lots more, all about Imperium Surrectum, this fantastic, absolutely boundary breaking mod for Rome Remastered. So yeah, let me just remove this so you guys can see me. There we go. Hello. And we can get started. So let's start with some introductions, guys. If you want to start with Jorellaf.
Sure. I am the main map maker guy, so I've pretty much, besides research, the map is my baby. And I am a historian as well. Not only for the mod, but also like professionally. Um, Specializing mostly in like ancient history of the Caucasus.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's me.
Sounds good. How about you, Mausolos? Let's go through you.
Yeah, I've been on several Rome Total Realism mods really for almost a decade now. I've helped Howl, especially in his projects back then, and I've been kind of the lead historian for his projects. The role I now share with these two other guys here, I suppose, even though Jorellaf is always so busy with the map that leaves a lot of that to me and Rex. But yeah, I've been helping other Total War mods in the past for different games, Medieval 2 as well, and Rome 2 and Attila. So done a lot of stuff, a lot of the research for them. Yeah, I don't really mod myself. I just do the research. I write texts, whatever you want. And yeah, like Jorellaf, I'm also a historian in real life, specializing on different things, but mostly Greek history, but also the context between the Greeks and the peoples of the Western Mediterranean, Iberians and Celtiberians and Celts in general. Yeah, so I try to bring that into my work on the mod as well, of course, and we have experts for different areas, which works really well. And yeah, I try to organize this research most of the time.
Okay. Nice. And finally, Rex. Let's get to know you a little.
Yeah. So hi guys. I'm Rex. I am the second in command, or so they say, of the historical research of the mod. I'm also a semi-pro historian in real life. I'm mostly focusing on the East, so the Seleucids, Asia Minor, some areas of Greece, and the Balkans. I'm also a musician and while training to be a programmer. So that's a bit about me.
Okay, nice. Awesome. And before we get into the seriousness of the questions about this mod, tell us really quickly, what's your favorite feature about Imperium Surrectum so far? Let's start from the bottom this time. Rex.
Bottom.
Well, for me, my currently favorite feature is the map, the detail of the East especially. But my really favorite feature is yet to come. So that's all I'm gonna say about it.
Wow. Okay. Nice little. Oh, I love little like answers like that are a bit like half like, yeah, so this is what I like, and half like, oh, you will see. Nice. All right. And Mausolos, what's your favorite feature?
There's a lot of good things we already have in the mod, to be honest. It's easy to say the map, which Rex said, but of course there's also the units, especially the Hellenistic factions are largely finished in that regard. And all the Greek units for them, for the Hellenistic kingdoms of the East, are done, and they really look stunning, and they are very accurate rosters. We did the research for that, and the artists have done the magic, as Rex likes to say. So yeah, it's very nice to see these units coming together and have all the variants and see different factions being very accurate, but also have all these incredible detail and have these stunning graphics in the game, which is a remaster of a game that came out 18 years ago, after all. So
Yeah.
it's pretty great to see them, and yeah, we are very happy to have them and see the progress with the units.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Jorellaf?
I mean, I could say the map because, well, it's basically my baby, but I'd say, like, to be fair, the unit work is fantastic. Like, we started this death cycle thinking, okay, we're basically not going to be able to do much in terms of unit because trying to, like, we have to model everything anew because the old models were from original Rome, and there you had like a very a different let's say different order of magnitude of detail available to you. So and Tone and his team has done an amazing job in like setting up basically a factory for units. Like you would at some points it's kind of like they're somehow like actual ancient armor is just like crafting all these detailed pieces of equipment for these units to wear, and it's great to see in like on in like in a game that's so old but also like is very how can I put this, like all the gameplay is very classic. Like you get the nostalgia of playing the Rome, a Total War title, and the mechanics of that from like you know so long ago, before all the different mechanics changes, I guess, that have arrived through the years. Some of them obviously positive, like people still probably want to have 3D naval battles and
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
remastered, but yeah, and
Coincidentally,
maybe some of the negatives too.
Just to interrupt you for a second. Coincidentally, apparently, speaking of the original Rome and how far it's come, how far Total War has come since then. Apparently, today is the first. Today is the birthday of Rome Total War, which is interesting.
That is,
Yeah, I just looked it up. It actually was the 22nd of September 2004. So
oh yeah,
How crazy is
just
that?
came of age.
yeah,
18 years.
Exactly.
wow.
I know. All right, guys, cool. So I'm going to, just as an FYI, I'm in the campaign right now. I've started one as Epirus. I'm going to just, as we, speak about the various features of the game and the mod, you can, direct me, etc. But this is kind of what's going to be happening in the background, by the way. But while I'm getting into this, let's start with the first question. Which I've always kind of wondered about Imperium Surrectum, which is, it is a combination of Rome Total Realism and Roma Surrectum from the original mod, or the original kind of game. So how did that partnership come about? And yeah, tell us a little bit about, what kind of influence the mod so far has had from either of the original mods.
Maybe I should take this?
Please
Or
do.
I don't know. All right, well, the collaboration was mainly, I'm pretty sure, mainly coordinated by Ahal, who is the leader of the mod, and just talking to Tone, who was one of the leaders of Roma Surrectum, and also I think he talked to Maurits as well, who was again the leader in the later stages of RTR 7. And yeah, things just started developing once we knew about the remaster, and people like all the old modders just awoke from their slumber and started uh, coming over and seeing what we could do together.
An old passion was reignited.
Yeah, exactly. And
Nice.
in terms of what each each branch of the two mods that let's say merged into RAS is from RTR is a lot of the uh, campaign gameplay, as well as economic balance and things like that. Ahau has done a lot of work with like balancing campaign economies and stuff. So he knows his thing. He knows his stuff. So a lot of the campaign balance now and in the future will most certainly come from like all the work that was done in for RTR, and from Rome Surrectum we obviously have the name legions, which were there in the previous release, and we have basically, I mean, we also have a lot of the music from RS2 as well, because the composer Apple from RS2 also joined the team and is a very integral part of the team, and a lot of the music he composed is in the game. And I mean, Tone is the lead unit maker, so you could say that basically we are taking from Rome Surrectum all the unit work, which was also the case for the previous release, where we were still using the original Rome models, not the remastered models, because those were the units that could be the textures could be upscaled and look very good. Not as good as obviously completely new units based on the remastered bodies, but yeah, still very good.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, it seems like there was as you were saying, there was kind of okay, the remaster is coming, so we can do something with that, and Ahau and Apple and everybody kind of like, I guess, came together from both sides to try and make a sort of combination, which has birthed Imperium Surrectum, which is just to also appreciate what you guys have done so far is probably one of the most immersive and I guess aesthetically amazing and historically authentic mods I've personally ever played. So congratulations for that. All right, so I'll just move on to the next question then, which is tell us, I guess, so Rome Remastered went through this promise of, we're going to be delivering a game that is remastered, but also has, from a modding kind of perspective, a lot of limitations removed. I know that the first few iterations of the game still had a lot of those kind of limitations in place, and you guys had to work with what you essentially had. But how did that last patch from Rome Remastered really affect your work, and how quickly have things been developing since then? And tell us a little bit, how from your perspectives within the team, how did development change, and how impactful was that last patch for Rome Remastered for you guys?
Well,
yeah, you go first, Rex.
So I was never a part of the conversations between Pharaoh and the core team.
Okay, right.
I think mostly, Jorellaf, Tone, and Ahau communicated with them, so they knew in advance basically what was going to come. What I can tell you from my perspective is that we started working on just a list of possible potential new settlements to add to the map in about July or June last year. So they probably knew already back then that Pharaoh was working on removing the limits of the map. And yeah, we just started with a simple spreadsheet. The plan was to double, I think, or something like that, the amount of settlements on the map. And we followed that plan for a week or so, and then the historians, we just broke that barrier pretty soon. So I mean, right now we still have that spreadsheet, and we still have, I don't know, like 100 or 200 settlements that aren't even on the map right now.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, so
sorry.
Yeah, go on, Jorellaf.
In terms of suggestions, I would say it's probably around several hundred, maybe more than 1,000. Like things that we wanted to be as comprehensive as possible and get, even if a place was a minor village, just to have it there, just in case we needed, be there.
Right.
So yeah.
It was also hard to understand in the beginning just how big we could make a map and how many settlements you can add. Because everyone was used to the limit of 199 settlements for Rome Total War. And I think it was the same for Medieval too, which is obviously modded a lot as well. So everyone was used to these 199 settlements. We'd always shift around if you had maps of similar size. You try to emphasize one region over the other maybe, but you couldn't really differentiate them that much from each other because you had the very same limit. Like, if you start thinking about settlements in the ancient world, you would think, oh, 199 is a long list, but then you see all these regions and you need to cover areas like the Arabian Peninsula or Mania, where it's really difficult to find settlements. And then in other places like Italy or Greece, so many, there's just very difficult to fit them all in.
Right.
And with this patch, removing the limits that just open up really new dimensions. I remember Rex and me did some initial work in Greece and Asia Minor, and we suggested which cities could be added. And then Jorellaf's reaction was just, this would mean everything is still empty. We need far more than that. And that's how the spreadsheet Rex mentioned came about. So we did that. And yeah, I think Jorellaf is right that we still have hundreds of suggestions in there. Not all of them are going to make it, obviously. There'll be a happy balance somewhere. We've already added loads of settlements, and most of that is probably done. But yeah, there's still an amount of disbelief in this at this stage, how much is possible. And this is also true for the other limits that Pharaoh removed, and for which we are very grateful. The amount of unit models and unit entries.
Oh, yeah.
The number of factions, of course. We added so many factions in the first patch after that, and nobody really knew what it was going to mean, if you get what I mean. Because there's so many implications which just weren't there before, because you always had these limitations, and suddenly it's a new world.
Yeah.
Actually, can I interrupt? I'm really sorry, Terminator, because you're actually playing on the previous beta build.
Oh, I am.
Realized
All
that.
right.
Yeah. So Steam Workshop is.
I was yeah. No worries. I was
Steam
wondering why
Workshop is
the
buggy.
okay. Yeah, no worries at all.
So if you close it and then open it again, it probably will start actually downloading the new beta. But
Okay.
yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'll just make my face a little bigger here on the stream, which is always fun. And we'll just get that to. Oh, okay, yeah, it's just downloading now, so no worries. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So essentially, just to go back to the questions, yeah. So you guys, yeah, I mean, when the last patch was released and I remember Melkor made a video about it as well, and yeah, I think there's just, and there's still so much excitement about the kind of potential that it unlocks, right? And you guys and your work that you've done here with this mod so far is just a testament to how moddable this game is, and how limitless some of these features of the mod that you're working on are. You know, whether it's cultures or the number of factions, the number of regions, obviously the scale of the map, but also the unit models. Like, absolutely, like every preview, every dev diary that you guys release, and you have those handful of pictures that you guys put up with the new units are just really detailed and aesthetically done. So definitely big cheers to the artists there, and of course the historical research that goes into it. So we'll get to a lot of that research in a second, but let's then go on to our third question here, which is, so, you know, the patch is out. You guys have done some amazing work with it. How do you feel about Rome Remastered compared to the original Rome Total War? And do you think that Feral could have done more, even more than it did, to remove limitations and make it more moddable or editable, or have tools that, you know, are a bit more easier to use? Yeah, what do you think about that?
If
Well,
from my perspective, I'm coming from the Roma Surrectum team, and I mean, visually, we still haven't done a lot of things with the, I don't know, UI, the stuff like coding, events, all the stuff that is possible now with the Rome Remastered latest patch. But the possibilities are truly endless. So we haven't even begun the proper work on doing unique events for factions, so that every faction feels unique to play. So yeah, but probably Jorellaf would know a lot more about these technical things than me.
Yeah, so I mean, there were two parts of that question. I think it was, the first was, what do we think about the remaster, and then if we think Feral could have done more. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I mean, the remaster is great. I mean, I like Feral discusses with us, like we get to see a glimpse of how difficult it is to like wrangle this almost 20-year-old engine to do what you want to do, and there's a lot of like weird little hacks that they had to implement in order to like deliver what has been delivered, because yeah, the engine is a lot of the things that are new in this engine. The engine was basically not really built for those. Like I don't believe merchants were in the engine at all, and so when that's one of the reasons we removed them, because merchant the calculation for merchant movement and trade and stuff took so much time running on the Rome engine that it was basically just destroying end turn time. So merchant simply will not be available, for better or worse. I know people who don't really like them. I don't really mind them myself. But yeah, so all these tiny things where Feral basically just squeezed as much as they could out of the old Rome engine. And on the other hand, when it comes to whether Feral could have done more, well, Feral is, you know, they employ people. They have to pay bills. It's not like they can afford to do all this stuff for free. I mean, the employees do a great job, but they also need to be paid. So if the creative assembly says, you know, you have to move on at certain points, and which I believe is what happened. I think they released Medieval 2 for the iOS or something.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah, that's
remember.
right. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so they had to move on to that project, basically. Even though they've been like constantly helpful with us whenever we have any questions about, you know, problems with the mod, or like there's this feature that's not working well, or I can't really get this feature to work well. So they've been really amazing, honestly. And a lot of this is like technically not paid, because they're not paid to like give support to us. It's just something they do like as a pro bono, let's say.
Okay, so sorry, just to clarify, are Feral Interactive are still kind of supporting you or giving you
Informally, let's say.
Okay, cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Good to know. Okay.
Just answering questions. I mean, the people who worked on the code and stuff are still available for us to contact, and if they're available and we have a question, then sometimes they answer, and oftentimes they're very helpful.
Nice. Okay. Interesting. Cool. So the general sentiment is Rome Remastered is way better than the original. And Feral did a great job, you know, removing those limitations, some of which you haven't even touched yet. So you were describing some of that when it comes to, you know, events and things like that. Okay.
Yeah, I feel a lot of people just miss or are comfortable in the original game's design and UI and the music. So you just have to get used to Rome Remastered, and when you do, it's a really fun experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. Well said. I remember when I first heard the news. Oh, actually, no. When I first even played Rome Remastered, I made a video about it, absolutely bashing the game and how I absolutely hated it. I don't know if you guys watched it. Every now and then I look back at that and say, why did I do that? But yeah, I mean, I think
no more invitations from Creative Assembly for you.
Yeah, I know, right? From Feral Interactive. Yeah. I mean, as far as like remasters go, I think it's a success story. I mean, visually, the game looks miles ahead of the original. Modding capabilities aside, like they did add a few new features that were interesting. The UI obviously caused a bit of a, I think, conflicting kind of viewpoints from different people about the game. But I think, as you said, it's something you get used to. A lot of it is kind of useful, and obviously it's editable. So you were saying as well, the UI is something that you guys are going to be working on as well, I guess, eventually.
And I mean, they did add some improvements to the UI from release as well. Now descriptions, you can read them.
Yeah.
Like you have a massive panel, and they added more features to like sort. I don't really quite remember. Like a lot of sorting maybe, and useful lists and stuff. So yeah, they've done a good job. And I mean, I'm very familiar with the Rome original UI, so but at the same time, it's I haven't played the original Rome in like 2 years now. So,
yeah, same here. Fair enough.
You just realize that the remaster is such a more modern product that's like more user friendly to play in the end.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's essentially a much more user friendly and I guess modern version of that game, basically. Okay, cool. So just moving on swiftly, 'cause Jesus, it's already been half an hour, to the next question, which is It's about the map, and we have to talk about the map. How was this map created? Tell us a little bit about the process and what you had to go through, and everything. I mean, the technical side of it, the historical research of the various settlements, their locations, the names. Yeah, give us the whole rundown of this incredible looking map.
I think that would
Oh,
take
thanks.
a whole interview on its own in order to answer that. I think
Fair enough. Yeah.
the good thing to do, so that I don't want to hog the conversation, so Mausolos and Rex can discuss at the start the way that they how they figure out which cities to suggest, which cities to put on the region suggestion spreadsheet, and
Yep.
the names and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, we can start off with that.
Mausolos, maybe.
Yeah. I can start on that. Yeah, as mentioned before, we have this spreadsheet for every one whole spreadsheet, but it's organized into the different areas of the map, and then we basically add settlements wherever we think we have ideas and we think there is a settlement which should be added to this map. Like the beginning of the work was probably the most challenging because you just have cities in your head, but with the size of the map we have, you quickly run out of options, and then more difficult research comes into play. What I've been doing is whenever I came across an ancient city which I felt was not on the map, and since I work as a historian, I quite often come across ancient cities. I went and added these to the map, to the spreadsheet. It never takes very long. The main problem often is to find out who would own the settlement at the start of the campaign in 270 BC. I mean, it's obvious for some cities, but it can be very, very difficult in some places. And then also because we added other factions later on, once we've added them, we need to figure out which cities will they start with. So the spreadsheet has to be updated, the map has to be updated when we add a new faction, because we didn't know some of these would be added when we did the research. I mean, of course, there were some examples where we already expected that we would add a faction. For instance, before we added Sparta, we probably were very much aware that we would add Sparta at some point. But there's other factions, like the ones in this release, some of the Gallic factions there, like the Belgae, the Belgic tribes. We may have been less aware of that, so we just put the ownership as rebels. And then once we come to the faction, we obviously have to update all of this. But it means that whenever we add a new faction, of course, we will put some more specific research focus on this area to give them a better starting location, not just themselves, but also to represent the situation around them better. For instance, we are adding Lusitania, which is in modern-day Spain and Portugal. So we did quite a bit of research on which Lusitanian cities existed. There's this city which is actually called Moron. It's on the Tagus River.
That's great.
In modern Tejo. We have it in the game, and it will be one of the two starting cities for Lusitanians, because the ancient geographer Strabo mentions it as an important place. So we have it, and that makes us, that allows us to have the Lusitanians start with two cities instead of just the capital, Oxtraca, which was destroyed, I think, at some point in the 2nd century. And then we, of course, also look around that. We have other cities like modern Braga and Braca or something like that, and that's a rebel city. But of course, it makes the Lusitanian campaign better because we have more rebel cities around them, so they have targets to go for in the beginning. And we may even add one or two more places in this region. I think we have Portocale as a suggestion, which is modern Porto, and that may make it in the next version. So that's how the process goes. It is always a process. You find new cities, and when I was reading about Portocale recently, which is where the name Portugal comes from as well, I think. I was thinking, why do we not have it and add it as a suggestion? But then it's usually us historians adding it there, and then Jorellaf, of course, he has his own cities because he's a historian as well. I mean, Jorellaf probably has the most diverse roles of anyone on the team because he's a jack of all trades. He can do everything, which obviously means that he's usually limited to the map, however, because there's just too much to do. So sometimes we wish we could just clone Jorellaf so we'd have another one who could work on other things than the map. But yeah, and Jorellaf and A. Howell, our team leader, they will usually have a look over it and yeah, usually discuss things and then see where is there enough space, does it make sense on the map, and then we add it. If it makes sense from a gameplay point of view, if there's enough space on the map, and if it's historically important.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, there's a pretty, seems, I guess, rigorous process to find these towns, these cities, whether they're even just mentioned in a historical account. You might just add it in there, especially if it was, I guess, a city of importance, and that kind of all influences the way you've essentially been able to fill out the map. So every settlement here has, would you say, a kind of historical reference point or
Yeah,
point
well,
of
yeah.
reference?
Certainly, yes.
I mean, yeah.
That's crazy.
Maybe Jorellaf can say something on the area, so we don't have any written sources like the steppes, Scythia, and stuff like that. It's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Let's okay. Maybe Rex can talk about the Seleucids and Iran, because
Yeah.
that was also. I mean that area is not as easy to research. Let's say, especially if you want something before, like before the 1st century CE with the like the Assassids already owning all that area and setting up their own principalities and whatnot. So
Yeah, definitely. We haven't heard from Rex a lot either. So Rex, take it away.
Yeah, so there are two ways to approach this. So for the Greeks and the Asia Minor settlements, it's fairly a straightforward process. Just by looking into Strabo or Ptolemy, or any historical source from that era that describes, I don't know, battles or history of a certain kingdom, you get a lot of references from that. But for the areas like Germania or Gaul or Britain or I don't know, even Iran, you really have to focus on archaeology. So we are fortunate to have a great Celtic expert on the team, which is Genava, and we also have a Germania expert on the team, which is Raptor, and they really researched those areas, focusing mostly on archaeological evidences. So for Iran and the East, the problem was that most of the sources mention Hellenistic settlements, or the most famous ones like Ecbatana, Babylon, or I don't know, Zadrakarta in Hyrcania. But we don't really have any mentions of places that were Iranian or Bactrian. And this is where we have to focus on research from, I don't know, the Russian historians from the 20th century. They research a lot of like the modern Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and areas from that part of the world. There's also India, for instance, which we only have dubious references from sources like the Periplus, or what is it, the cart, the map of the traders, merchants who went to India.
Yeah.
And even that's from the like first century AD or something like that. So it's not really in our time period. So those are some of the difficulties which we have faced when researching the map.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, a lot of these cities in India, it's basically you'll find one reference in Ptolemy who is not extremely accurate when it comes um he uses a coordinate system, but generally his maps are very very distorted. So you have to like compare maybe or like try to figure out where the city was supposed to be. If it, I mean, maybe it's not even a city, maybe it's a village that he heard about or something. And a lot of the areas that are not as well written about from the ancient historians, they required the treatment of basically usually it's Ptolemy or maybe Pliny the um, the younger
Hmm.
who gives us lists of cities and stuff, and you have to figure out how to place them. And maybe there's previous research seeing where they most likely were placed, and so we put them there. Sometimes they aren't the they aren't very exact, or they're not very certain, but at some point, me, who usually is the one who has to deal with that, I just say that's enough and and just accept the identification that some historian in the 20th century thought of, and just say that's that. Let's move on because I can't spend so much time just researching cities. I mean,
Yeah.
the Arabian Peninsula took me between 1 to 2 months to like find enough cities and try to figure out where they should go. Um, it's just it 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 comes being very difficult because I mean
Hmm.
ancient historians aren't perfect, and the information they had was definitely not perfect. And at some point it's like a guessing game. Maybe you put it in an archaeological site or whatever. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just like you just like find an archaeological site and look for a city in the Ptolemy's geography that vaguely resembles that it should be where the archaeological site is, and you put it there, and it's like that's it. I'm done. So yeah, it's just very difficult to try to map the ancient world with ancient sources alone.
Yeah. So
Um,
most of those sources have been Hellenic, basically, is what
yeah,
you're saying.
uh,
There aren't a lot of other sources to, I guess, rely on. Yeah, to rely on. Well, okay. So stay on the Arabian Peninsula for a second. What were, I guess, from kind of the expanding the map point of view? What were the kind of what were your objectives? What are you aiming to achieve by extending the map so far south, for example? Because if there are kind of limitations in terms of historical yeah, context and sources for these areas, how are you planning to fill the southern side of this map?
well, it's already been filled pretty decently. Well, well, it's been filled to a point where we consider it's fine. It's good enough.
Okay.
Maybe a couple of more additions, but generally the idea was, especially me, I was very much into having Meroe, or like the Ethiopian kingdom in the south,
Mm-hmm.
um, and maybe Axum and the Sabe, and and Hadramaut, and all these like South Arabian and then also Ethiopian kingdoms who also
Yeah.
participate. Like they were still in contact with like the Ptolemies and then later the Romans. Like they fought and they had trading links, and the
Mm-hmm.
my desire was that we could include as far south as possible without without um, extending the empty terra incognita region, which is like the desert of the Sahara Desert region,
Yeah.
or like the more uninhabited place region too much, because we also didn't want like super empty spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've managed to do that pretty well. Like, of course, the Nile is basically the channel through which most conquest from north to south and south to north will take place. But
Mm-hmm.
there's some rebel tribes around in the desert too, and even though, like, yes, you're you're revealing the Easter egg of like the Niger River area as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which would be reachable. Like you can do a Cornelius Balbus expedition down the Sahara, and go and encounter some and pretend you've encountered some elephants
Yeah.
and reach Niger River as well. So
You think
um
I mean, with the army, I'm assuming they're going to take attrition in the desert. Would they really survive getting there?
so Rome, original Rome doesn't have attrition.
Oh, you're right. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can. There's ways to implement it in like the remaster, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah.
We hope to do so. Yeah.
That would be awesome. Definitely. Well,
Yeah,
okay.
and
When that happens, that expedition is going to be a little tougher to pull off, I think.
yeah, I at least in my mind, you'd have like you reach the Niger with any faction and you get an event, or like you reached the land of the hippopotamus or whatever, and some like flavor text, and maybe you want to try to conquer that area, which will probably be difficult, at least hopefully.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Full stacks of elephants defending it.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Elephant Doom stack. Okay. Um. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I mean, the map is like, again, it's an incredible achievement. It's a what you guys have done here is very, very impressive, and I'm sure you've got, by the sound of things, you've earmarked various regions, settlements for factions that you want to fill in as well, Aksum and Ethiopia and other areas. So I'm assuming then, and you can confirm that a lot of these kind of rebel regions, eventually, in the next few years, however long you're going to be working on them, will be filled by, I guess, factions, whether playable or not, I guess.
Definitely. We can't really say which faction will come next and
Yeah, no.
when it will
Mhm.
come next, but we do plan to populate the map with more interesting factions. Like now that we have unlimited factions, it's like that we can build something that's like unique, uh, for a unique starting situation, but also a unique way of like playing,
Yeah,
as
definitely.
well.
Okay, so not to not to give Jorellaf the mic for long times, long periods, but tell us a little bit about, just for like maybe a couple minutes, the kind of technical aspects of the process that it took to make this map what it is.
Right. So a lot of it is geographical databases that I insert into a program called QGIS, and that I have a I can export all these different geolocated data sets, like let's say height and vegetation density, climate, and city locations. Those are the primary ones I use. Export them into a image file, which I then take into Photoshop, and then use that as a basis to like build the Rome map files, basically. Yeah, that's that is pretty much it. And then there's some manual adjustment as well, which is done through additional layers in Photoshop, where I add like extra land or extra sea or extra lakes, because for one reason or another it's needed. And then the process is otherwise pretty automatic, I would say.
Okay, wow. Interesting. All right, so it's I guess I guess I just expected it to be a bit more complicated than that. But yeah, I guess yeah.
The complicated part is finding the right data sets, and also trying to work with geographical data, because if you know, there's vanilla doesn't have perfect geographical data, because it carves out valleys and stuff, and the mountains aren't always where they're supposed to be. And but the problem with using real geographical data is that the game has you know, tiles for movement. Like there's a smallest unit of geographical space in the game, and geographical data doesn't really play well, because maybe you have a very narrow valley that doesn't translate well into like video game tiles, so you have to mess around with that a bit. Maybe some unit will like have to cross a big hill, even though there would in real life there would be like a small patch of land next to it where they would actually walk. I think you can see that in Thermopylae, actually, where there's a bit more land than in real life would have been. But at the same time, you also I looked through the map, and it's actually, it looks quite nice. Like it's not perfect, but it's the closest thing you can get, and
Yeah,
it's
no, I
damn
mean,
close.
it's
It's pretty damn close.
it's a beautiful map, definitely, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So just talking a little bit about the kind of historical accuracy and you know, the balance between being as accurate and authentic as possible, while, you know, still trying to keep the gameplay balanced, and, you know, maybe some issues that you've come across to make sure that is the way it is, or prioritizing certain areas and cultures over others, for example. How has that kind of, I guess, yeah, how's that process been in terms of, yeah, the research behind making all of this as accurate and authentic as possible, and implementing that in a way that is balanced and fun across the board, I guess.
I guess I could say something on that, maybe with the example of the units this time, because we've been talking a lot about the map.
Yeah, true.
So we can take that. Yeah. So for instance, when we construct the unit rosters, then of course, just like the map, we also try to portray everything we find in the ancient sources. But obviously, for most of the sources are, again, well, for our time period anyway, they're mainly Greek authors. Very few Roman and later sources. There's sometimes archaeological stuff, of course, when you have swords or helmets and graves, when you have stelae and other depictions on stone slabs of warriors. That is something that is very popular in Asia Minor, for instance. They do it. Sometimes you have inscriptions mentioning specific regiments, and then you have Egypt, where you have papyrus documents, which document a lot of stuff we don't have elsewhere. So that, of course, affects our work and how we balance it. And I would try to compare the two factions here. Let's say we would the Ptolemies, because there we have the papyrus documents and sources on the one hand, and one of the more obscure Greek factions, maybe Massalia on the other side. So when we did the Ptolemies and tried to research their roster, the problem was that there would have been too many units, because the papyri, they attest all the regiments in existence, and they of course make differences between them, because they say the soldier XY was part of this regiment, which was part of the Royal Guards, and then, for instance, we had mentions of several units which is similar to the Torakitai, these heavily armored swordsmen, Turios shields, which are probably known to most Total War mod players or mods of Total War games.
Yeah.
Certainly of Rome Total War. And now we had several units, about 6 or 7, which may have been armed in that way. And then there's speculation from historians that some of these may actually have been the same. And yeah, I followed these interpretations in some cases, because I would have just duplicated the same unit over and over, and there's not really a point from a gameplay perspective to have exactly the same unit 3 times, which just looks different, has a different name, but has the exact same equipment, which would also result in the same costs of recruiting them and the same upkeep costs. And then, of course, if they are, in this case, all members of the guard, then they would also all be recruited in the same way, in the same building. So there's not really any point in adding all 3 of those. So that's a case where you say, okay, we will follow this interpretation that they really were the same. We would just have one unit to represent this, because otherwise it's just a bit pointless. It's unnecessary work for the artist at the end of the day, and with the different variations, we can see it right here in the battle you're playing. Everyone has different shields. I think there's 7 different variants in the units, so you can have 7 different types of shields, helmets, and everything. And that's more than enough to distinguish between these 3 units mentioned in this case.
Okay.
On the other hand, of course, we have factions like Massalia, where we have about 3 sentences about their military in the ancient sources. And one of them is just generally saying that they used archers on their ships against the Romans. And so yeah, we still need a full roster. I mean, it's nowhere near as big as deep, of course, as the one the Ptolemies have. Because we also want the factions to be different, of course. The Ptolemaic kingdom was a large Hellenistic kingdom. It had all the riches of Egypt, and would, of course, have a large and very heteronymous army with loads of Greeks and non-Greek soldiers. But on the other side, Massalia was just a small city-state, so it doesn't need a roster as big. But, of course, you want some kind of special units, because if you just give them normal Greek javelin men and some peltas and hoplites and some standard Greek cavalry, then who would play them?
Yeah.
So you have to find
course.
something special for them. And then in this case, I took this basis, the one sentence that they used archers on their ships. We used, and of course, Massalia doesn't really have the remastered models yet, but they will have stronger archer unit than other factions, than other Greek factions, probably with better armor as well, as to give them something unique. And because they were used in ships, and Massalia was famous for its navy, so the Roman authors say, but they never name a single example where they actually won a sea battle. So it's maybe doubtful, but they will also get a Marines unit, because they are known as a maritime power. So they will have that, and we'll be very creative when it comes to the Marines. I think they will probably only be in, they should be in the 0.6 version, the one after the one which is released next, and we got very creative on that part, because there's some interesting descriptions by Aristotle. Because in one of his works he says he was talking to soldiers who had served in ships, and he describes all the kinds of armors and weapons they use, which are very, very interesting combinations, I would say that so far, which players are probably not used to. So in that way, we found a way, and you see it then when it's out, where, yeah, a way to make Massalia an interesting faction as well, unit-wise. While for the Ptolemies, we had to reduce the roster to make it playable. So it's one of the difficulties one faces with the research, and that's where you always have to take gameplay into account, of course.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Interesting. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the second part of the question was the prioritization of areas and cultures, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, Rex, do you wanna have your input as well? Yeah.
Yeah, so all I can say is that we decided with the artists to focus on the Hellenistic units first, because it would be easier for their process of making new units. So that is the main reason why we have previewed the Seleucids, the Antigonids, Epirus, and the other Hellenistic factions first.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes total sense. I think anyway. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I haven't quite been able to play around with the kind of latest update that's going to be releasing in what, 8 days now. But with everything that you guys have managed to pull off here, with the various factions that are releasing with it, and the rosters that you've made lots of additions to as well, I'm very excited to get in there and check out how balance is, and like I'm trying to do here as well, but just appreciate all the work that's gone into, you know, the various shield and helmet variations, etc. So yeah, it's an amazing thing. I'm just gonna say it's amazing every 5 minutes now. Okay, cool. So we've gotten a bit of some context in terms of, you know, how much research you guys have done, rigorous research to give you a bit of context into the unit design, and the prioritizations of various areas and cultures, etc., and the balance. I guess one of my last questions for you guys is in terms of the future of the mod. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of newer mechanics, or or tweaking even of mechanics that are already present into something a bit better or new that you plan on doing? And is there anything else that you want to mention in terms of future work that you're kind of looking forward to get stuck into, or that you're working on right now?
Yeah, we're definitely planning a lot of more features than we have now. I think a lot of the recent focus has been on finishing the map. And as we said, we'll add a few cities more, but not that much. That will probably come into the very beginning of the next development phase. And once we've done that, we can obviously go into a lot more detail with how every faction will be, how the playing experience will be like with every faction. Like, you diversify the traits for characters, for instance, as a project we'll definitely work on. We'll have new buildings and governments at some point. That is probably going to take more time because it's quite complex.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then, of course, the unit work is going on. Like, the Hellenistic factions being finished now, and then all the other Greek factions, the city-states, leagues, confederations, they will be next. And then, of course, unit work will probably move on to other factions. Of course, people will want to see Carthage and Rome being worked on, so that will definitely happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, of course, these things are never finished, but we try to introduce a lot more mechanics. Yes, definitely. Like we mentioned earlier, that you don't suffer attrition in the desert or in cold areas in Rome Total War, neither in Remastered. That is, of course, something we could address and something we will definitely look into. But there's a lot of ideas, really. We will probably rework trade as well, and also make cities more unique by we already have some more unique city models now, which are taken from Rome Surrectum too, I think.
One of
One of member of our team, Swagger, he worked on this, and now you can have more non-vanilla city models and more different city models, and we'll work on this in the future to make it more interesting as well, I guess, and also add unique buildings on the campaign, so that, for instance, you will have, well, you play in Epirus there. They had the Oracle of the Dona in Epirus, which was a bit similar to the one at Delphi, so we'd have that as a building on the campaign map, and then that you have it there in the city, and it will have some special effects, and some cities will have buildings which give interesting effects, so that they are more worth capturing. Others will just be for flavor, I guess. But yeah, those are some of the ideas we have, and maybe Jorellaf and Rex have more on them and can, name others. But I think these are some of the ideas we have, and we always get new ideas as well. But it's always just about having the time to implement them and seeing how feasible they are.
Yeah, definitely. Jorellaf or Rex, do you guys want to add anything to that, or is that pretty much covered?
Yeah, he pretty much covered most of the stuff that we are allowed to talk about.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, Rex, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just in terms of what lies in the future is we strive to make every faction unique to play as. At least that's the idea. So a lot of flavor will be given to almost every, at least major faction on the map. But mostly we really want to push the limits with everything. So I was advocating for that since the beginning. I think the team is slowly getting into the same mindset. At least we now see with the map. But there are also other things that can be pushed to the limits. So that's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, it's a good answer. You know, I mean, we all know Rome Remastered has a lot of limitations removed. So yeah, it's kind of like the world's your oyster almost. So yeah, I'm sure you guys are planning for quite a lot of interesting changes to come in the future from a mechanical point of view, and you know, whether it's new types of buildings and government types, etc. I'm sure there's a lot being planned. But I appreciate you guys giving us as much as you can today in this live stream. Okay, cool. So we're just over the hour mark, guys. And just gonna ask, how are you guys feeling? Do you want to take? We have a few questions from the chat as well that we can go through a little bit, maybe for half an hour if you like, and then we can finish off.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So a lot of these are very quick answers, I think. So we can just like whiz through them a little bit. From Aiden Lewis, there's a question which was, you know, you guys have created this massive map, and at the moment, anyway, it feels like the movement points are quite a lot for, you know, armies and agents, etc. Are those going to be adjusted? Do you think, to be a little bit more realistic, or is it realistic currently? I'm not sure.
The current movement point is what we had on 0.4 times 2, because length and it's twice the linear size of the map, 4 times the area, and so yeah, it's twice what we had in 0.4. So I mean, considering it's just been twice the size, maybe that's how it will stay. I don't know. It does bear to mention, I think, that our map was like even like even if you make it twice as small, it's still bigger than vanilla, or Mundus Magnus. So like the resolution of it is bigger. So maybe the movement points could need some additional increase, but otherwise it's should be fine. Play like you wouldn't be completely restricted in movement at all.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's a solid answer. So I think as it is right now, it's not really going to change by the sounds of things.
Probably not. No.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is from Joe Johnson. He's saying, I've totally screwed up charging this general, by the way.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this, I guess you guys mentioned it a little bit earlier, but have you done any work as it is right now on the merchant and trade systems at all?
Like we said before, it just completely removed because it was just like creating extreme end turn times because of the calculations for the merchants and the trade values of the nodes. So it was just completely removed.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. That's all right. We'll just quickly move on from that then. From Claude Jansen, we have a couple questions. So I'll pick maybe one of them. From each of you guys, what's been your biggest challenge developing this mod? That you know, like so far, of course.
Let's start with Rex, I say.
Well, the sheer amount of research that was needed, not only for the map, but also for the specific factions, especially because I'm not really that well versed in like Cappadocian history or Rhodian history, so I had to research everything from the bottom up. So it really took a long time. Also unit research. I was never a unit research guy. I was mostly focusing on ideologies, diplomacy, politics, and stuff like that.
Right.
But since we have a small team of historians, you kind of have to do that to help the team. So yeah, I would say that was the most challenging and difficult part of these last couple of months.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So historical research, essentially, from you. Should we move on to Mausolos?
Yeah, what Rex said is true, especially when you have to research something you're not really familiar with. At the beginning of the mod, maybe you hope we'll find some expert for every area, but that's not the case, and that's what Jorellaf said about researching the Arabic Peninsula or the map. Or I had to do the unit research now for all the Thracians, and I've never really done anything on Thracians before, but now I'm apparently a Thracian expert. Because, dude, and yeah, I read these books, and now it's all in my head. And it's fun to learn about new stuff, but of course it's more difficult because you don't really know the background, and the authors will be mentioning stuff you've never heard about, so there's always quite a challenge. And more specifically, I'd say the biggest challenge is always to get everything finished when we put a deadline, and to actually keep to that deadline. I've moved sometimes in the past, but then it will not be much, and we try to announce it beforehand. This time we'll definitely meet it, the 30th of September, no worries about that, but it is always a challenge to get everything finished in time, but we have to remind ourselves that it is a mod. That's something we're doing in our spare time.
Yeah.
Or should be doing in our spare time. And yeah, that we don't get paid for it, and there's not really anything forcing us to do this, so need to be relaxed about it. But in the last days before release, like now, of course there's always challenge to get things finished and to get it over the line, and there's some stress, of or a lot of team members?
Yeah. I would say yes. I mean, this is a panel of historians, so they're probably going to say the most difficult part has been doing their job.
The research,
So,
yeah.
historical research, yes. I mean, I've had to look through manuscripts of Ptolemy in Latin from like the 17th century to like try to figure out which spelling of which city is correct and whether maybe the translation that you see or maybe the Greek is wrong or something. And there's also one book on Google Books which like has footnotes in German, so I have to like also go through that, try to figure out what the footnotes in German says. Try to figure out whether that means I can use this name or maybe there's a problem with the name or stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's definitely the hardest thing. I think uh, uh, special mention comes to like also selecting cities, because sometimes you're like, oh, I want this. I really like this city to go in and to be in the map, but it doesn't really make sense. So you have to like learn to let go every so often.
Make sacrifices.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
there's you have so many cities with very funny names. You have the Moron in Iberia, which I think we called it Morona or something.
Oh, we
All
called
right.
it Moran.
Did we?
Moran. It is
Okay.
called Moran, yes.
Okay.
That's what
Well,
Strabo says. That's what the Greek manuscript says.
you have Sexy also in Iberia.
I haven't edited
Yeah.
it yet. But we
Yeah,
should.
but we didn't add it because it's too minor.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of joke cities that we could have added. Nah, no, I'm afraid not.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. I think we've been through everyone then, haven't we?
I believe so. Yes, all three of us have spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just double checking for a second. Okay. So that was Claude Jansen. There's another Total War YouTuber. I don't know if you guys have seen his channel. It's Iceni Total War. There's a few playthroughs, which is really good. So he's got a couple questions here as well. First is a good one. How much bug fixing has been done since the last update?
Lots. I mean, I'm currently doing that right now while in the call. So yeah, I mean, because new features are added, obviously there's also going to be more likelihood for more bugs, and yeah, there's like a lot of bug fixing and figuring out. Sometimes you get crashes where it's like, well, could it be this? Could it be that? So you try to like look into it, and just for safety, you'd like remove any sort of thing that could cause a crash at all.
Yeah.
Right now we're doing the final bug fixing, and so far it seems pretty okay. I mean, we have quite a good number of testers who like try to break the game best as they can, and so far it's been quite stable. And the only I mean, right now we're mainly focusing on campaign balance. So not like we'll do one final round of bug fixing. I mean, so far we haven't found any game breaking stuff or whatever, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
So we're focusing on campaign balance and getting playability, but also like AI, AI performance as best in tune as we can, for an enjoyable experience.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, sounds good. I mean, I guess with any updates like this, there's a lot of added content here, right? So the priorities of bug fixing must be on any bugs that will prevent the new content from actually functioning, right? If it's going to lead to crashes or whole features not working or something like that, rather than more minor bugs that you might be able to fix in the next update or a hot fix or something like that. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. He's got another question here, which I think is interesting. I don't think it's come up yet, which is, with the new huge massive map here, have you guys done any adjustment to victory conditions? I guess you would have, for the new factions especially, you would have done some new victory conditions, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Apple is the one who was doing victory conditions, and now with the campaign balance work, we've actually victory conditions affect the AI performance, so don't think of them as I mean, it's something so important for the AI behavior in the campaign that it's
You have to
being
do
worked
it.
on right now. Yeah, and
Okay.
also you know, players can do what they wish generally, and you don't really focus on victory conditions. Like, make up your own if you don't think the ones in the game are achievable, or also if they annoy you, like maybe, oh, as Rome I need to take this one province and this island, and I don't really want to do a naval invasion because for one reason or another, so I'll just forget about it and just keep playing my own game.
Yeah, so I guess just to pivot a little bit on the question for a second, beyond victory conditions, what you guys are doing here is really trying to create a proper sandbox Total War that has every potential to be played in multiple ways. You know, you can take Carthage and properly go to war with Rome, or you know, you could expand west into Iberia further, etc. Like there's what you're really trying to do is you know, with the number of settlements, the incredible detail and unit rosters, etc. It's really trying to make things have immense depth, and enough depth for each campaign to be quite different from another. Is that fair to say?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Very cool. Okay, cool. So, do you guys? Does anyone else have anything they want to add to that, or?
Oh no, I think Jorellaf said everything on that. There's a lot of testing, obviously, on these things like the victory conditions, and very recently now we've worked on that because we want to achieve a certain balance, of course, between the AI factions, and you want the bigger factions to actually do stuff, and so there's a lot of testing that goes into that. And as Jorellaf said, things like victory conditions are very important to be influenced or to be changed in a way that influences the AI, because you want to see the other factions do stuff and behave in a way that you probably expect them to do so. Like, if Rome would never conquer anything, then if you play a faction that could get into conflict with Rome, that may be a bit boring if they've not expanded at all. So of course we do a lot of testing in that regard, and then that just has to have the higher priority to make the AI perform better, and to just have victory conditions which are maybe better for the player.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, especially if it's going to impact gameplay and how the AI behaves, you have to make those changes.
Yeah. It's not that much we can do about it. Like, we can't make a completely new AI anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got a few more questions to go. From Tiberius Augustus, we've got, great name. We've got 4 questions here, so I'll try and pick a couple. But before we get into that, I need to ask this, because it's been asked in the chat a little bit, and that is, who is the wizard?
Oh, that's me.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I am the wizard. That's the name they put me. They gave on to me because I was basically running around fixing every other thing, and also like in like different areas. So like, yeah, it's just a funny thing. Whenever I like fix something, I was like, oh, the wizard. It just needed the wizard to make it work. So
Yeah, whenever
Yeah.
whenever a problem comes up, they're all like, "Call the wizard."
yes,
But it's also because Jorellaf sometimes has very peculiar views of things.
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
You do not
Yeah.
have, which can be very helpful, but sometimes maybe hard to understand for the other devs. And you imagine that kind of wizard or Jedi master who has the insight into the wisdom.
An
and
agreeable
the others
proposal.
cannot understand it because they do not know the secrets or the force or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so I have peculiar notions on like faction expansion that came up and
For instance, yeah.
just recently, and everyone was like, "What?"
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, give us a little, what were your peculiar notions on faction expansion? I want to hear it. now.
I didn't like some of the testing results showed like the Averni, like all these factions in gold, just like painting the map completely, and maybe also the Germanic factions, also painting like all the way into the Danube. But I was like, I did not want any expansion from them. Pretty much like 1 or 2 settlements per 100 turns. Like I think I said 1 settlement per 100 turn is good, and everyone.
That caused quite a debate.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm not. There's a turn of phrase my brain just completely like failed to bring up. I'm not unreasonable. I
Right.
I can. Yeah.
You're flexible in that way. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All they have said is a lie. It's not true.
He's just trying to be diplomatic right now.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, he's called the wizard because that's a Seinfeld joke.
Is it?
It's a
Yeah,
Seinfeld joke.
Yeah, he's the Wiz. He's the Wiz, and no one beats him.
Oh.
I've never
Actually-
watched Seinfeld, so
I actually recently watched all of Seinfeld, but that was like maybe 3 months ago, and I don't remember that reference. Oh, who's the Wiz?
Texas of Seinfeld wizard knows everything about it.
Oh, really?
Everything, but occasionally I remember something.
Yeah.
Okay, so just going back to these questions for a second, there's a couple here that are interesting about micromanagement specifically. So with such a massive map, you've got, huge numbers of cities and settlements. You've got eventually, I mean, even at the start for some of these factions like the Seleucids, you're going to have a lot of different armies to manage as well. So how challenging do you think management is going to be from a faction management perspective, in terms of, going through each settlement, constructing the correct buildings, or, putting auto manage on, and can the AI handle that? But I think equally on the kind of military side of things, how, yeah, do you have plans to make things like, so the question specifically is, will auto replenishment be a feature that you're going to try and implement the way it's done in like Rome 2, for example?
So as far as the management aspect that goes into so many settlements, it is more difficult the more territories you own, but that was true even in the original game when you had 200 settlements. The problem with, I think, the most viewers that ask the question of the administration of so many settlements is when they see the Seleucid Empire and the amount of settlements that they have.
Yeah.
We realize that that's a thing that might concern a lot of players. It concerns us as well. We are coming up with ideas. We have some ideas prepared. Um, we won't talk about them as of yet,
Mhm.
but we are keeping notes on it. So a lot of it will be down to player feedback when the patch is released. So we'll see. I mean, I personally suggest if you start with the Antagonists or any faction in Greece and slowly go up from there. Don't start up with the Seleucids from the start.
Just don't play them, never.
No. I mean, they are my favorite faction, and I tried playing with them. I did manual administration of every city. It takes quite a while to go through all of them, but it is manageable if you are how should I put it, a masochist.
You're a masochist.
I have some raw data for you. So the Seleucids have, at game start, currently 89 settlements. So
Oof. Nice. That's
Yeah.
that's a chunky number of settlements right there. 89.
To be fair,
Yeah.
with the amount of factions we have, I think it'll just be nice to have such a variety between factions. I mean, the Seleucids will start with 90 settlements. This may not be for everyone, but it's a very different experience from, say, playing as Athens, which starts with one city and basically under siege by, by Macedon, which
Yeah.
will present its very own, very difficult challenge. But yeah, I think that will be the whole experience, the RIS experience, that will have so many different factions on such a vast map with so many different units and eventually mechanics as well.
Yeah.
Characters, everything. Yeah, every faction would just be so different. You're not forced to play as the Seleucids or as Athens or as Rome if you like others more, because we have so many to choose from that that should be enough for every player, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I guess yeah, I guess from my perspective, that's one of the key kind of beauties of this mod that you're developing is every faction has such a wide difference from the other in terms of whether it's starting number of settlements, locations, the kind of diplomatic circumstances that you start with the factions that you have around you, the types of units obviously that you have access to, your unit rosters, etc. That is going to be a very interesting thing to properly get into and then build up on, you know, with the map now done, adding even more factions with variety, etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess the lesson here is don't play as the Seleucids.
Oh,
Try them once and see how it goes.
But not as the first faction to play as now. Start with something small and easy.
Okay, fair
I mean,
enough.
the whole point of this campaign map, which has so many settlements, I imagine it to be sort of like a regional experience.
Yeah.
For instance, I tested as the Antagonists a couple of weeks ago, and I was playing obviously in Greece, and it took me, I don't know, like 100 turns to conquer the whole of Greece. But that's because I play with a slower pace. I administer everything. I manage each building. I want to build up my empire. And I honestly can say that it was the most fun experience of any Total War games or mods to date.
Wow, that's a big statement, my man. Interesting. Might have to check it out then.
I would actually like to challenge you to play as the Antagonists and try to just have fun. You'll see how fun it is to play in Greece.
Okay. What I'll do then is, because I am planning on live streaming the mod again when it releases, or maybe, I mean, some of these factions will be playable now as well. now ahead of the update. What I'll do is I'll do the antagonids first then, just because you said that, and now I'm very interested in it as well. Okay, cool. So I guess final couple questions, guys, just to finish off today. The first is, the mod is currently 2 turns per year. So do you have any plans to make that 4 turns per year or more?
No, not right now. It's not within the our immediate scope, I don't think. We may or may not have discussed it because now this huge map, so many regions, maybe could be fun to play it in 4 turns per year, but in the end, sub mods can also exist just fine, and if anyone really wants to do 4 turns per year, they're free to make a sub mod once the new version releases and upload it to the workshop and have it for people to enjoy.
Yeah, fair enough. So it'll stay 2 turns per year for now. And then our final question, guys, today is from Georgy Mihalkov. He asks, will you have a playable, it's kind of specific, but will you be including a playable Etruscan faction or the Samnites, maybe? Which is, yeah.
I mean, good question. There's a lot of cases like that. The problem is obviously that the Samnites were conquered by the Romans, and so were most of the Etruscans with 270 BC. But then you can argue that a lot of them were not directly integrated into the Roman territory, but they survived the Socii as allies, which of course were dependent on the Roman power, so to say. So not independent. So yeah, of course there would be some potential for that, but the AI would probably not handle the Socii system well, so if you made them their own factions. What is more likely is that we would have factions like that as emergent factions, which could spawn rebellions to make it more of a challenge for the Roman player. If you do not pay attention to the public order in your provinces, then you may risk a rebellion and a new faction may spawn there. That is something we may definitely do in the future. But playable Etruscan and Samnite factions, to be honest, are quite far down on list of candidates we still have, and factions which actually fill territory which is now only filled by rebels have to be a priority. Sorry, because there's still a lot of areas, especially on a map that large, where we don't have any factions yet.
Yeah. So essentially, the answer is yes, but definitely not yet. Kind of.
Yeah. Don't rule it out, but it's nothing for the imminent future.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, factions like India would have to come first, of course.
Wow. Okay. Bold statement there. Interesting. So you'd rather prioritize India.
Between Etruria, like an Etruscan League faction, and India, definitely India would need priority, considering there's all these cities that are empty, just filled with rebels right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. So one of these areas,
Okay, fair enough.
Just a disclosure, this wasn't a serious statement from me.
Yeah.
I can reveal right now that Han China will be in the December update. Units are ready.
Please no.
Oh hell yeah! Okay, you heard it here first, guys.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Please no. Okay, cool. All right. Well, that's really gonna be it for today, guys. If you have anything else you want to say before we end the interview here, then go ahead and say it now. I'll just go off and say, it's been seriously a pleasure to have you guys here and answer these questions, ask you some really interesting questions for Imperium Surrectum. I think everybody is very, very excited to get their hands on the next version of the mod and appreciate the amount of work and effort you guys have put into it, and the passion that you guys have you know, for modding and modding Imperium Surrectum. So yeah, thank you guys for being here, and thanks for your work.
Thank you
thank
for
you.
the interview
Yeah, thank you for
And-
having us.
and your
Yeah.
passion for the game.
Aw,
Yes.
my pleasure, guys. Hopefully we can
would-
do this again. But yeah, go ahead.
Of course. Sorry. Yeah, no, I just wanted a special mention to Janava 055, technically his full username, who is our Celtic expert and who does quite a lot of heavy lifting in that area. He also is a historian for EB2 and 0AD, so
Oh wow.
his work on RAS is very much appreciated, considering he also has all these other mods and games he works with. But yeah, so that was it.
Maybe I would also like to mention Yotel
Yeah.
or
he was gonna say
Jotel.
that. He's also
who-
been on the public chat, by the way, so
Yeah.
he's hopefully listening
Okay,
right
right.
now.
Yeah, he's really helped me and Mausolos a lot, especially with the units and the other historical research as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't add much, but it's always good to find people who have the knowledge and the commitment, but who also just stay, because on mods you always have that problem that you have a lot of people with great skills join and then drop out as soon as they've arrived, basically. And so it's good to find people like Janava and Yothel, yeah, to join the team and stay and just contribute permanently and make it a success story.
Nice.
Definitely.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh yeah, he's just saying now, thanks for the mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Honestly, I would only like to add that I wish people have a lot of fun with this release.
Oh yeah.
That they try the big map, the biggest map ever
Yeah.
of any mod, and tell us of their experiences.
For any game ever.
in the present, past, or future.
Exactly.
It's true. It's true. I mean, it's worth just mentioning. Obviously, this is still the beta version of the game, so keep in mind you might still come across bugs and you know, things that are going to be worked on to fix and make sure it's a smooth experience. But yeah, also absolutely. I mean, just to like, I guess, just say this, you know, if anyone who's watching is going to be playing Imperium Surrectum in the new update, make sure you guys also try and get into the Discord, feedback to the devs, let them know what you think and anything you've experienced that they can have a look at as well.
Yeah, please do.
Please do.
Please. No, we're not that desperate.
Yeah.
It would be very, very helpful.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you seriously for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you guys and what you do on the team, and get to know a little bit more about the mod, its history, its the work that you guys are currently doing on it, and potentially some of its future as well. So, yeah, again, thank you so much for being here. And with that, we will end the interview.
All right, thank you.
Have a nice evening, everyone, or day, wherever you are.
Morning, afternoon.
Morning, afternoon,
Yeah.
night, whatever.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Exactly. All right. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.